When you see this bonnet on, just know we about to get cozy and talk about some books. So welcome to Bonnets and Books with Joy. What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for clicking into this video. My name is Joy if you're new here, and if not, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Yes, it's another book video. Just forget what I said about this not being a book tube. It's a whatever tube. You feel me? Like, we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. You dig? But today we're doing Bonnets and Books with Joy. This is a series that I started on Instagram and TikTok where I would just go over all the books that I read each quarter. And I started to do this because I didn't want to do a review for every single book that I read, although things are changing. Okay, because yeah, things are changing. I found that like the Bonnets and Books with Joy videos on Instagram were really long. So I was like, yeah, it's time to take my talents to the YouTube where y'all come to hear the yap. So this is the first edition of Bonnets and Books with Joy. I hope y'all enjoy it. But enough of the yappa yappa yappa. Let's jump into the books that I read in Q1 of 2025. Okay, so y'all know I got my handy dandy Kindle pad here, and I just have Goodreads pulled up. So we're just going to go through the books that I read, what I rated them, what I thought about them, and yeah, let's get to it. You dig? So I read 13 books this quarter, which is kind of on par for me. I usually read between 10 and 12 books per quarter, so definitely like a little above average. Anyway, so the first book that I read this year, okay, wait, before I start, all of these books will be linked in my bookshop.org affiliate link. If you want to support me, I would absolutely appreciate that. But even if you don't use my link, I highly suggest shopping with bookshop.org. And this is not sponsored, but they are a company that proceeds from shopping online go to small indie bookstores. So I absolutely love that. And I discovered them on Threads because they had threaded, or what are we calling threads? Anyway, they had made a post about supporting bookstores and not billionaires, Amazon. And I've really like been trying to make sure that when I buy books, when I can, because I know that books are expensive. So I'm not telling anybody not to shop on Amazon, not to shop at these other major retailers that sell books at a more discounted price, because I understand books are expensive and you want to shop. I get it. I get it. But if you can spare the extra dollars, I really suggest using bookshop.org because the proceeds from your purchase go towards a small indie bookstore. And yeah, we need to be supporting the actual book community, not these people that just want our dollars. You dig? Okay, so let's jump right in. First book I read this year was Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell, and I rated this book 3.5 stars. The premise is so interesting, and it's about what would happen if all the white people in America disappeared. So this story follows child, I forgot because it was so long ago. This story follows Charlie as he navigates this new world after an event where all the white people walked into the nearest body of water and drowned themselves. Now, the premise is actually crazy. It's actually insane. And I'm not going to lie, that's what drew me to read this book. But I feel like it really felt like the ending was rushed. It felt like the story was like left untold. I don't know. I really didn't like the ending, but it was an interesting story that explored like race and what we would do if we didn't have these social constructs in place. Like, what would our identity be? Who would we be if we weren't under the system of racism and race in America? It's a really unique story. Unfortunately, it fell kind of flat for me, but I definitely think that you should check it out if you think the premise is interesting. The next book that I read in Q1 was James by Percival Everett, and I rated it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of Jim, who was the slave, and it made me laugh. It made me angry. I think Percival Everett did such a great job at capturing the horrors of slavery and what it looks like to be a family man and be enslaved. And I just thought that it was brilliant. It really should be required reading for schools. I think that I'm pretty sure I had to read Huckleberry Finn when I was in high school, but I don't know. I just really enjoyed this book. I think Percival Everett's, it was a short book, but it was impactful, and Percival Everett's writing was just fantastic. Definitely add to your list because it was a banger. Speaking of bangers, the next book is The Best Lies by David Ellis, and let me tell you something. David Ellis gonna take you for a ride, okay? One of my favorite books that I read last year was Look Closer by David Ellis, and it just the twist that he puts in his books and the way that he sets the story up to then take it to a completely different direction that I wasn't expecting was so good. I rated it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's a psychological thriller and it kept me on my toes. You feel me? David Ellis has a way of layering characters and storylines and timelines and all bringing it all together to such a twisty, crazy end. And this story follows Leo, who is diagnosed as a pathological liar. And so David Ellis created like an unreliable narrator in Leo, and the story just like I love it's multiple POV, and I love multiple POVs that all come together at the end and just like blow your mind. Leo was absolutely crazy. I love this book, and I definitely suggest it if you're looking for a new thriller to add to your TBR. The next book that I read in Q1 is Harlem Rhapsody by Victoria Christopher Murray. This book follows the story of Jessie Redmond Fawcett, who was given the name the midwife of the Harlem Renaissance by none other than Langston Hughes. And she really was like the curator and the creator pretty much of the Harlem Renaissance. And this story follows Jessie as she works at the Crisis magazine here in Harlem, period, during the at right before the start of the Harlem Renaissance actually, and she worked underneath W.E.B. Du Bois and was having an affair with him as well. And obviously, y'all, this book is fiction. Victoria Christopher Murray did a fantastic job of doing research and really trying to layer the story where it wasn't just about Jesse's affair with um, WEB, but yes, that's a majority of the story, but you can't tell Jesse's story without mentioning her relationship with Du Bois. I saw a few reviews about like how people felt like this book focused too much on Jesse's relationship with Du Bois and not like her actual work with the Crisis magazine, the first magazine that was catered to Black people. And I'm just like, you can't tell Jesse's story without mentioning her relationship with W.E.B. Du Bois. And I think that Victoria Christopher Murray did such a good job of like showing the humanity in these people that we've put on pedestals, the greats of our time, you know, like people who like you can't take away the fact that Du Bois really did so much for the Black community, but he was also very deeply flawed. And Jessie's story also showcases her ambition in a time where women, and especially Black women, were not considered anything other than the property of their husbands. So she was well educated, very smart, nurturing, and really tried to bring out the best in other people and those around her. And she also made really bad decisions when it came to men. Okay. But I highly suggest reading this book. If you ever want me to read your book, put Harlem or something in the title because that's where I'm from. You feel me? So you always going you always going to get my attention with that. But I really, really enjoyed this story. And learning more about the Harlem Renaissance and how it came to be. And I suggest that if you read this book, go and read all the way to the end, obviously, and read the historical note where Victoria Christopher Murray does a really good job explaining what got her interested in Jesse's story and the research and the care that she took into crafting this story. It was really fantastic. I highly recommend. The next book that I read and absolutely adored is Malice by John Gwynne, and it's the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series. And when I tell y'all, this book in this series reminds me why I love reading. I am so obsessed with this series. It's definitely gunning for one of my favorite series of all time. And are there other series in that list? Not yet, but I'm just so emotionally invested in this story. Like it's just so good. And series follows Corbin and his crew as they try to save the Banished Lands. And it just, the character development in Corbin from book one to book two, and I might as well say the second book, Valor by John Gwynn. I also read this quarter. The character development from book one to book two and the cast of characters is absolutely insane. I love seeing them grow. The battle scenes are so epic, and John Gwynn actually does like reenactment. Um, he does like reenactment of like fights and stuff, I guess, and in his spare time, and you can really see his knowledge of these battles in the battle scenes in the book. Now, I will say, if you are new to epic fantasy, and I think I might make a video on this, but if you're newer to epic fantasy, this book might feel a little intimidating because the cast of characters is really long. For Malice, I would say the first 50% is really like laying the groundwork of the world, the characters. It's really not it's really not, y'all see how excited I am. How excited I am. I just love these books. But the Banished Lands is really not a hard world to understand. It's not a lot of magic. It's just very easy to follow, but it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. In book two, I love that John Gwynn put a cast of characters in the beginning of the book. It was really easy to figure out who came over from book one and where they're from, what they're affiliated with. So that was really helpful. But like I said, the first 50% of Malice is a little slow. It's still really good. And I rated Malice 4.5 stars because it was a little slow in the beginning. But the more I think about it, it's really 5 stars. Like, I need to change that. And Valor is my first 6 star book. Like, I feel like I'm all over the place talking about the two of them, but Valor is my first 6 star book because from page 1 to page 600 or whatever, it's just straight action. I laughed. I legitimately cried. And I have yet, there was one other book that I read that made me like tear up, and that's The Women by Kristen Hanna. But Valor had me actually crying because I became so emotionally invested in these characters to the point where I was like, girl, these are not real. These are not real people. Relax. But John Gwynn does a fantastic job creating characters that you feel, like they just feel so real. I highly suggest reading this series, and I am going to read all of John Gwynn's catalog. Like, y'all see the books behind me, the Blood trilogy. I didn't even start yet. That was the first set that I got by John Gwynn, and I came across a video on TikTok that was like saying the order in which you should read his books. And even though the Blood trilogy is not related to the other two series, The Faithful and the Fallen, and I think the other one is called Of Blood and Courage. Of Actually, I don't know what the other series that comes after the Banished Land is called. I forget. They told me the TikTok said to start with The Faithful and the Fallen, and I am so glad that I did because this series has made me a true John Gwynn fan. Absolutely love it. You should definitely check it out. Even if you're newer to epic fantasy, I think that this is a great entry point. It is so good. So good, so good, so good. The next book that I read was Junie by Aaron Crosby Eckstein, and I absolutely love this book. It follows 16-year-old Junie who is enslaved in Alabama, and this story takes place right before the Civil War, and it just follows Junie as she navigates. First of all, she awoke her sister's ghost, and the drama that ensues after that, learning so much about herself, her family, falling in love for the first time, falling out of friendship, discovering herself, standing on business. I absolutely love this book. I love that the author was able to bring a new narrative and perspective to the humanity of the enslaved, because normally, we all know that the enslaved couldn't read or write, and their basic learning skills were less than obviously the white people at the time. But Aaron Crosby Eckstein did a great job of showing an educated, well, I mean, as much as she could be, but Junie could read and write, and she had a friendship with the master's daughter, and just seeing how that friendship really created this other world for her that was it's not common in seeing it's not common to see in books about the enslaved. I definitely really enjoyed this book. It's based on the lore, so to speak, of the author's own family. It's beautifully written. I love the love story between Junie and her Buki. But I definitely suggest reading this. It was a beautiful, beautiful story, and it might change your perspective on how we view the psyche and the ambitions and the lives and the desires of those who were enslaved. The next book that I read was Do What Godmother Says by L.S. Stratton, and this is a dual POV thriller that follows Essie, who is an artist during the Harlem Renaissance, and Shanice, who is just a girl trying to figure out her life in present day, and how their lives are intertwined by this painting that Essie painted during the Harlem Renaissance that Shanice inherited from her grandmother. And this book took some turns that I was not expecting, but towards the end, I kind of figured out what was going on. But one thing that I thought was interesting is Do What Godmother Says and Harlem Rhapsody both had an overlapping character. They're not neither one of these books are connected in any way. This woman, Charlotte Mason, was a benefactor during the Harlem Renaissance. So I just thought it was funny that like both books mention this lady. But anyway, Charlotte Mason played a major role during the Harlem Renaissance because she kind of like supported the lifestyle of some of our favorite artists that came out of that time, such as Langston Hughes. And so in Do What Godmother Says, it kind of explores like the dark side of this woman having so much access to these really talented artists and really dictating their lives. And it just shows the two timelines intertwined from this one photo. And it's so good. The storyline is so good. The characters, Essie and Shanice both got on my nerves throughout the whole book. They were so reliable but unreliable, and so Shanice was so naive, but it really like added to the story because it's like, girl, you cannot be making all of these decisions, and just seeing like how her decisions played out in the book in the long run was really good. I highly suggest it. It had me like it took me for a thrill ride. It definitely did. So I definitely enjoyed this book and suggest you add it to your TBR. So the next book that I read is Pines by Blake Crouch. It's the first book in the Wayward Pines trilogy, and I absolutely loved it. And the crazy thing is that I watched the show Wayward Pines years ago when it came out on Fox, not knowing that this was based on a book. I wasn't really reading like that. So it was really good to like go back into this world and see like where the show came from. And let me tell you something. Blake Crouch is going to write a book that you can read in one sitting. This book was so creepy and eerie and fast paced, and it follows this FBI agent that ends up in this town in Idaho, and you can't get out. It's such a weird book, but I absolutely loved it. One thing I will say about Blake Crouch is that I really feel like he writes his books to be made into TV adaptations. So for me, it feels like it was like watching the show all over again in my mind. And the TV adaptation so far based on book one is very spot on. I definitely enjoyed it. I think I rated it 4 stars because there was it felt a little bulky at times, but overall I really enjoyed it. It's a great story. I love me some Blake Crouch. The next book that I read after that is Not So Perfect Strangers, also by L.S. Stratton, and I'm sorry, I really did not enjoy this book. I think I rated it 2 stars, and I don't know, it just like the characters were so annoying. Like they just were so bad, and like it didn't feel like a book that was written by a black woman. Like the way that the black characters were portrayed, and like the racism from the white characters, and it was maybe not racism, but like the prejudice undertones. I don't know, it just was not good to me, and I'm not finna bash this author, but I definitely did not enjoy it. I mentioned Valor already, so after Valor, I read The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson, and this is book one, and I think it's called the Eternal Path trilogy, and I read it as an arc. So thank you to NetGalley and Orbit Books for letting me read this book early, and it's an epic fantasy. If you liked The Will of the Many, I think that you'll like The Raven Scholar. And the reason that I say that, they are totally different books. I enjoyed The Will of the Many so much more. That is, we're not even gonna go there because I could talk about that all day. But if you like the aspect of intense trials, really unique and intricate politics, funny banter between the characters, I definitely think that you will like The Raven Scholar. I rated it 4 stars. It was really good. It's really unique compared to some of the other epic fantasies that I read. And in my head, it takes place in like this Morocco type setting, and it follows Nima Kra, who is a part of the Raven contingent, and she is really smart, like super quirky and weird, and nobody likes her for real. But it shows like how people start to get to know her and see that she's actually really smarter than all y'all think. I like the romance subplot. The characters, like the side characters, were also like really funny. Now, I will say that the pacing was kind of off with this. I felt like the narration didn't make sense at all at some points, because I think that, I don't know if it's because it was the arc or what, but it wasn't like really delineated where the narration would change. So that kind of like confused me at some points. But once the book got going, I would say maybe like around 30%, 40% of the book, it really started, everything started to click. And that's the thing about epic fantasy. You gotta let the authors cook in the first half. Like you really have to let them lay the foundation. And the ending really was excellent. Like I was shocked. I did not see the twist coming that came. Like I truly, truly enjoyed this book, and I can't wait for y'all to read it. I can't wait for the rest of the series. Like definitely enjoyed it. And last but not least is The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. And I rated this book 3 stars. It wasn't bad. The premise of the book is actually insane and makes me want to live off of the grid. And it follows a woman who is retained after she has a dream about murdering her husband. So this book takes place in a world where your dreams can be monitored and used against you. And so she has this device implanted into her head after giving birth to help her with sleeping, and her dreams are being monitored. And so she ends up in this retention center. And the book felt like there was a lot of portions of the book that I felt like was unnecessary. And mind you, it's a short book. To me, it could have been even shorter. And I think that's what it made it better. But it really made me think of how I want to monitor my data and the companies that have it going forward. It was just a really interesting premise. It made me think about, it just made me think. And that's why I gave it 3 stars, because I like books that really like cause me to think outside the box and really think about the world around us. And it poses the question of how much are we willing to sacrifice for the luxury of ease and convenience in our lives to these companies. And so it definitely like shined a light on like just a lot of things, like living in this technology world that we're living in. I don't know, y'all. It had me shook a little bit. So I definitely suggest reading it, but know that the pacing can be a little slow at times. But it is a short book, so it shouldn't be that bad. All right, y'all. That's all of the books that I've read in Q1 so far. And I would have to say that Valor was definitely by far my favorite book that I've read so far this year. Let me know down below, what books have y'all been reading? What's been your favorite book so far this year? And any book recs, y'all know my TBR, like I told y'all, the length of a CVS receipt at this point is like double that. So I'm always open to adding new books to my TBR. Let me know what you guys are reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy reading. Bye.